Ranking my favorite characters in the MCU since Avengers Endgame. At number 20, I have Deadpool. I know what you're thinking. Why is this guy so low on the list? He's such a great character. Well, like I said, this is since Endgame. So the only film that I'm counting for him is Deadpool and Wolverine. And I do think Deadpool is really great in that movie. Obviously, super funny. His chemistry with Hugh Jackman or Wolverine is absolutely incredible. I simply just think there's been more characters since Endgame in the MCU that have, first of all, been in more projects. So you got more development, more emotional moments, and it's just simply been better. But I do still love seeing Deadpool all the time, and he was just his classic comedy self in Deadpool and Wolverine. At number 19 is Sam Wilson, who was super hard to place on this list because I genuinely think Sam Wilson is a great choice to take on the mantle of Captain America, and I think there's so much potential here, but I feel like for the most part the MCU just had no plan for how to handle this transition, and it just felt very sloppy and kind of lackluster so far. Like, honestly, the Falcon and Winter Soldier I feel like handled the character better than the new Captain America Brave New World movie did. Like I said, I really enjoy this version of the character. I just feel like the MCU has kind of been wasting his potential. Like, this is the new leader of the Avengers. That's what he's supposed to be. I feel like the fourth solo Cap movie with him should have came out like 2 years ago at this point, so we had more time to build up to him forming the new Avengers team. At number 18, I have Gore the God Butcher, or the villain from Thor Love and Thunder, which is a pretty bad movie overall, and it definitely holds this character back a bit. I don't think there's enough of Gore, but in the scenes we do get, the tone is so unbelievably different from the rest of the movie that's so goofy. We get really dark and serious every time Gore's on screen, and it's a 10 times better movie. Plus, you're helped by the fact that you have Christian Bale, one of the greatest actors of all time in my opinion, playing this character. I really wish they just saved him for a better Thor movie though, because it does feel like he's partially wasted. At number 17, I have Red Guardian, a character just introduced after Avengers Endgame in his 2 appearances with Black Widow and Thunderbolts. I think David Harbour is so great as his character in both those films. First of all, he's absolutely hilarious in both the movies. All his line deliveries absolutely hit. Every joke in both movies is really funny from him. But David Harbour is also obviously a great dramatic actor too, and he really knows when to dial it back, give you some great emotional moments between him, Black Widow, Yelena. Absolutely love this version of the character. And honestly, if you asked me when Black Widow came out and like before that movie was there, just based on trailers, I'd be like, oh, this guy's just gonna be a complete goofball, which he is, but he's such a lovable goofball. I never expected to care for him and his dynamic with his other characters so much. Him and Thunderbolts is simply too much fun. At number 16, I have Kate Bishop. The entire Hawkeye series as a whole was such a pleasant surprise for me, and Kate Bishop was a huge reason why. This character was simply just, again, so much fun, a great dynamic between her and Clint in this kind of mentor-mentee role. I'm super sad that now Jeremy Renner, he just came out and said that Disney offered him half the money for season 2, so he simply just declined it, and honestly, I can't blame him. It was apparently going to be like the same amount of length of him shooting for season 2 of Hawkeye, but for half the pay, everybody would turn that down. But it's a shame because I love the dynamic these two had with each other, but I hope we still get a Hawkeye season 2 just focusing in on Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop as the new Hawkeye in this universe, because we really need to build up this character more if we are ever gonna get like the Young Avengers or Champions, whether it's a movie or TV series. She definitely needs to be the focus of it. She's easily the most interesting character out of all of them in my opinion. At number 15, I'm going with Tobey and Andrew Spider-Man. Super hard to place because obviously just the reveal and the moment of seeing them in theaters for the first time, that reveal that yes, they are actually back after months and months of speculation, was so insane. And I do think they actually have a good purpose in the movie. I love how they kind of help our version of Peter Parker in this universe. They actually have stuff to do in the story. They're not just cameos. Again, they are only in like half of one movie in the MCU, so I didn't want to put them too high up on this list, but that moment seeing them for the first time in theaters will forever be one of my favorite movie theater experiences. And getting to see Tobey interact with like Dr. Octopus and their callback to Spider-Man 2 was incredible. Obviously, get Andrew getting to save Zendaya's MJ to make up for the fact that he couldn't save his Gwen. Really great moments with these characters in that movie. I'm so glad they got to come back, and maybe another time in Secret Wars, but we'll have to wait and see. At number 14, I have Wolverine. Now again, I'm only counting his one appearance in the MCU in Deadpool Wolverine as this new version of the character that we've never seen before, but in my opinion, Hugh Jackman absolutely nailed this. Even more like rough, beat up, kind of just beat down version of the character. I think he nailed all aspects of it. I love the chemistry between him and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, even though he absolutely cannot stand Deadpool in the movie. It made for a really fun dynamic. And I simply think Wolverine was actually the best character in that movie. Like, he has the best emotional arc in my opinion. Number 13 is Daredevil. We've only seen him in Daredevil Born Again Season 1 and his brief cameo that he had in Spider-Man No Way Home and obviously She-Hulk. Now, I'm not going to lie, I didn't even get to his episodes in She-Hulk, so maybe he'd be higher on that list from there or maybe even lower since She-Hulk was so bad. That's literally the only MCU project I have not made it all the way through. I've watched all the other TV shows and movies. I just couldn't do it. But Charlie Cox is simply so good as his character. Even though I definitely did enjoy Daredevil Born Again, I honestly think it's like the second best MCU TV series that we've had. It still definitely does not come close to the Netflix seasons, and I definitely think his character isn't as strong in Born Again, even though it is still great, especially the episodes that were handled by the original crew from the Netflix series that are going to be in full control of season 2. He could quickly rise up the ranks to be like one of my favorite MCU characters. Number 12, just stick with me here. I know it might sound crazy having John Walker over Daredevil, but again, only doing post-Endgame stuff they've been in, and we've had John Walker in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and in Thunderbolts, and I think in both those movies, Wyatt Russell absolutely obliterates this role in the best way possible. I really love this character. He's super complicated. The Falcon and Winter Soldier show overall wasn't that great. I honestly think Walker, the dynamic he brings to that show and the conflict of him being like the new Captain America at the start of it, I think that's easily the best part of that series. I absolutely love him returning in Thunderbolts. I think he has some of the funniest lines of that movie, and I also love how we again get to dive a little bit deeper into his like personal backstory, the problems, what kind of made him the way he is, why he's kind of trying to change now but also not. And I genuinely hope he has like a super big and important role going forward in the MCU because I absolutely have loved him in his first 2 appearances. At number 11, I have Shang-Chi. Now, I'm not actually as high on the movie as a lot of other people are. I think it's a perfectly good like 7 out of 10, but I legitimately believe that Simu Liu as his character is a perfect casting that if they just used him more in the MCU has potential to be one of my favorite new Avengers of all time. I think Simu Liu simply captures his personality perfectly. I am obsessed with his powers, the ancestry and lore behind this character, his family, all that stuff makes him so incredibly interesting to me, and those were my favorite elements of the first Shang-Chi movie. Everything between him and his dad and stuff I think really worked and made me really care for this character. I honestly think it's really important that in either Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars, he gets like one really big moment to shine to remind people like, oh yeah, that's a great character. I want to see him in a sequel because we need more of him in the MCU. At number 10, I'm going with Kingpin. Now, I know him over Daredevil might sound a little bit crazy, but like I said, I love villains personally, and he is one of the greatest comic book villains we've ever seen on screen, even just counting the stuff he's been in the MCU post-Endgame, because you have to remember, he's been in Daredevil Born Again, obviously. He also had a little bit in Hawkeye and even Echo, which was a terrible show, but his moments in it were actually incredible. Like I said, I don't have to tell you how amazing Vincent D'Onofrio is as his character. It's been true for so long since the OG Netflix Daredevil series, but I think he is legitimately forming himself as a great new player in the MCU. Everything that's been happening, like I said, since Endgame with him becoming the mayor, that's a super interesting dynamic. Now he's getting back to his old ways, if not even more evil and brutal than ever before, and I'm super excited to see him going forward and his dynamic with hopefully people like Spider-Man. At number 9, I'm going with Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. I don't care if he's only been in Spider-Man No Way Home since Endgame. Willem Dafoe stepped back into this character and role so effortlessly and gave us one of the best MCU villain performances of all time, period. Obviously, yeah, you have all the other villains coming back in Spider-Man No Way Home, but he is really the one that still remains evil, the one that is trying to ruin everything. His fight scene against Tom Holland's Spider-Man, absolutely peak, just pure insanity as only Willem Dafoe can bring to this character. At number 8, I'm gonna go with Bucky. Now, he's appeared in 3 things in the MCU. Brave New World, he had a very brief, like, one scene cameo, not really relevant to this ranking. Obviously, then the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and him being in the Thunderbolts are his 2 major players since Endgame, and mainly this is being carried by him in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think he was great in that series. Don't get me wrong, he is great in Thunderbolts. Like, this action sequence that's right behind me right now, absolutely incredible. One of my favorite sequences from the entire movie. The stuff with him like being a congressman, I felt like they kind of underdid a little bit, and I wish he had a little bit more time to shine in Thunderbolts, but they focused a lot of the spotlight on characters like Bob and Yelena. I can't be mad at them for that. Plus, I genuinely just think Sebastian Stan is one of the best actors we have working in the MCU. He went and proved that by going and getting all these different like Oscar nominations and different awards in these last couple of years, but he still comes home to Marvel and gives us a great performance as Bucky whenever he's asked of it. At number 7, I'm going with with Moon Knight. If there are no Moon Knight defenders left on this earth, that means I'm not here anymore, because I absolutely love this character. I really like the show still. I know it's like the new cool thing for everybody to turn in it and be like, oh yeah, that was garbage. I still think there was really great elements. And when you're having Oscar Isaac give such an amazing performance as Moon Knight, Mark Spector, all the personalities, I don't know how you can say it's a bad show. First of all, he has one of the best suits we've ever seen in the MCU. This dude came out dripping in every single episode of Moon Knight. But Oscar Isaac, like I said, handles all the different facets of this character in such a perfect way. And the fact that the Marvel TV show Boss came out and pretty much said, like, yeah, we're probably not going to have a Moon Knight season 2. Hopefully we'll see him again, is really disappointing to me. Because again, just like Shang-Chi, this should be another like founding feature of this next like MCU phase and building up to maybe the Midnight Suns or something like that. I really just found this character to be one of the most interesting things we've seen in the MCU in a long time. Like I said, not only just the different personalities, his connection with Khonshu and stuff, it was just super refreshing in the MCU. At number 6, I don't think this is recency bias. I'm going with Sentry Bob the Void, whatever you want to call him. I think this was genuinely one of the best characters we've seen in the MCU, probably of all time, honestly, and he's only been in one project. Now, I am going to briefly talk about kind of his role in this movie. I'll try to avoid like major spoilers and stuff, but again, if you don't want to hear anything, just skip ahead a little bit. I mean, like, first of all, just talking about his powers alone, these are some of the coolest things we've ever seen in the MCU. His fight scenes are absolutely incredible as Sentry, just seeing someone genuinely super overpowered that can pretty much handle anything you're throwing at him with absolute ease, not even breaking a sweat. The way they handled the Void in this entire movie, obviously how it slowly creeps in at the beginning, like when he touches other people's hands and stuff and you start getting a glimpse of it, and then the Void fully taking over. I think how this was handled, both again visually, the effects of it, the powers he was using while he's the Void, absolutely jaw-dropping. But most importantly, the emotional element of all this stuff. Like, yeah, you can have some of the most cool and overpowered characters of all time, but if you don't actually have a person behind it that you can connect to, understand where they're coming from, what turned them into this person they are, nobody's gonna care about them. Simple as that. But Bob is such a perfect character because you feel so intimidated by him, you feel bad for him, you laugh at some of his jokes. He pulls off all the facets that this movie's asking of him so perfectly. At number 5, I'm going with Star-Lord. Now, I know this might be a hot take to only have one Guardians on this list, but again, this is only counting Volume 3 and the Holiday Special, and don't get me wrong, there's some great moments with the other Guardians in Volume 3, and if I expanded this list to like a top 25, people like Drax and Rocket would definitely be on here. Honestly, I might be making a mistake not having Rocket on this list, but I can't lie to you guys, I kind of think Chris Pratt as Star-Lord is the best part of Volume 3. Like, he reaches emotional highs with this character in this movie that we've never seen from him before, and truly shows like, yeah, yes, don't get distracted by the fact that Chris Pratt is in a bunch of these like big mindless blockbusters all the time. He can really bring you some great acting when it's asked of him. Getting to see his dynamic with all the other Guardians in Volume 3 is what makes the entire movie click. Like, seeing him being so heartbroken over Rocket isn't as sad as Rocket's flashbacks in themselves, but that is genuinely heartbreaking. Seeing him deal with the loss of Gamora all over again. Again, just brilliant stuff from Star-Lord in this movie. Number 4, I'm going with Spider-Man. Now, honestly, anybody in this top 4 could be rearranged and could make an argument for them being the number 1 in the MCU post-Endgame. With Peter Parker, obviously, we're dealing with him in Far From Home, which was immediately after Endgame, and in Spider-Man No Way Home. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I am not the biggest fan of Spider-Man Far From Home as a movie, or Peter Parker's character in it as a whole, or else he'd probably be number 1 on this, because him in No Way Home is legitimately incredible. Again, him with all the other Spider-Mans, I think those are really great scenes, seeing him kind of learn from them, him giving up Zendaya and Ned, making the big sacrifice at the end, all that stuff is amazing. I'm not gonna lie, this character kind of annoys me in Far From Home. I know he's a teenager, he's dealing with the loss of Iron Man, it's understandable some of the dumb decisions and mistakes he makes in that movie, like stuff with Mysterio that he does, but that doesn't mean it's more enjoyable to watch. And I just simply think there's been some other great performances and characters in the MCU post Endgame that deserve to be above him as of right now. Obviously, after Brand New Day, and if he shows up in one of the Avengers movies, he'll probably be number 1 though. At number 3, I'm going with the Scarlet Witch herself, Wanda. Now, obviously, she has been in WandaVision, which I didn't love as much as everybody else, but I do love Elizabeth Olsen and this character in the show. I think is one of the best acting performances we've ever seen in the MCU, and her in Multiverse of Madness, another movie I'm not crazy about, but her as the villain of that film is so incredible. Like, I just rewatched Age of Ultron the other day, which is obviously the movie that Wanda's first introduced in. It's crazy how different this character became, like, post Endgame, but for all the best ways. And similarly to Sentry, they understand, yeah, you can't just have a super overpowered character on its own and be like, oh yeah, they're going to be interesting because of that. No, we get some of the most interesting stuff with this character, seeing her handle her trauma and grief in WandaVision, that carrying over her loss of her kids that she created in Multiverse of Madness. It makes this one of the most interesting and layered characters we've ever seen in Marvel, honestly. At number 2, I'm going with Yelena. She has been absolutely cooking, obviously only introduced after Endgame in the Black Widow movie, then she appeared in Hawkeye, and now she has the Thunderbolts, and in each of these projects she has been so incredible. I almost think I prefer her as a character as a whole over Black Widow. And I don't want to bring down Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow character at all. I think she is a great member of the core Avengers. I love her performance, but I almost think Yelena is already a more interesting and well-developed character than Black Widow ever was. She, in my opinion, is tied as the MVP of Thunderbolts with Sentry. She is absolutely the MVP of Black Widow. Like, she completely stole the show from Natasha in that movie. Even her brief moment in Hawkeye was such a fun moment, a couple scenes she has. At number 1, I'm going with Loki. Now, yes, he's only been in one project, but it's a TV show with 2 seasons, so we have got to spend more time with him than pretty much a lot of these other characters. When this show got announced, I was honestly so worried because I was like, I absolutely love Loki. I think he had a perfect arc in the MCU from his very first appearance as a villain to dying in Infinity War. I did not want that getting ruined whatsoever. And somehow they brought him back and gave him an even better arc. Name another character that has 2 perfect arcs in one movie series. If you watched all the way through, I really appreciate you. I know this was a very long yap session, but let me know who your top 3 favorite MCU characters have been post Endgame only. See my ranking of every upcoming MCU movie by how excited I am for it. Tap the video at the top of the screen or tap the playlist at the bottom to just see all my Marvel videos on the channel.